What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today we've got a bunch more Destiny 2 information to talk about, which is coming from IGN's new article with Bungie and also Bungie's latest blog post. So we learned about what's going to be available to do in the beta, so some new things we didn't know about before, and also a quick look at new subclasses, the ability to lock loadouts for activities, and generally some new gameplay. There's a new location, possibly an exotic weapon, and also Mercury as well. So a ton of stuff to go over in this video. So firstly, let's talk about this new IGN article. They showed off a bunch of footage, and it was talking to Mark Noseworthy and Luke Smith about the kind of vision for Destiny 2. So this gameplay clip shows off a pretty interesting location that you might recognize, which is actually the Iron Temple, the same one in the Felwinter Peak social space, and if not, it's an identical building to this one, but I'm 99% sure this is the Iron Temple, mainly because the ice cores and how it's all snowy, but it's the building next to where Elite stands when the Iron Banner's running, so if you go in there and look up, you'll see the same kind of location. So it looks like part of the campaign. You might actually come here for a mission or two, or like I said, it's also possible this could be an identical building in a different snowy mountain, because the Iron Lords could have had multiple that look the exact same, but it's basically the giant kind of speaker fidget spinner thing in the tower. Now the weapon he's holding does also look pretty unique. It looks a lot like a World War II, like an M1 carbine rifle. It's probably a scout rifle, it could be exotic. It does look very unique and different enough to kind of be an exotic, but it's hard to say. It could even be a sniper rifle, which would be very cool as well, like a bolt action sniper with like no scope on it, but it definitely looks cool whether it's exotic or not. So something Luke Smith said in the video was actually very interesting. He was talking about weapon loadouts and how they carry into activities, and he was saying how they tried to make the game tougher, so you have to look across your loadout and pick the right weapon, and also that some activities you're going to be loadout locked, so once they start you cannot change your actual loadout. You can't be changing your weapons, your armor. They're going to be locked for the remainder of that activity, which is really, really interesting. Now this is a pretty huge feature that I always wondered if it would make it into the game, but kind of doubted it personally. And I know it's very hotly requested by the PvP community to lock loadouts so people can't be changing stuff all the time. So it's pretty surprising and also really cool to know it is going to be making it into the game. So certain activities, maybe a nightfall or a playlist, they're going to be locking your loadout so you cannot change your gear once you've dropped into the planet. And it's probably when you click on the activity, they'll warn you and say, this is your fixed gear. You won't be able to change it once you begin, and then you hop in, and it's basically set, which is going to be really interesting for PvE. And also, of course, for Crucible, I imagine this is what mainly inspired the decision. I think for trials, and especially competitive Crucible, it's going to come into play massively, and it'll stop people from exploiting certain perks and cooldowns, and just generally forces you to commit to one loadout. So, really big feature that surprised a lot of people. Now we've also got a quick glimpse at some of the new subclasses, so first person gameplay of the Sentinel Titan throwing shields around. It all seems to have some sort of void halo above his head, like that circle or ring above his head. Not sure what it does, it's probably a perk or some kind of like buff. Now we also saw the Void Walker in first person for the first time. Obviously we've known for months now that it's going to be returning, but now you can see the heads up display icons. You got the Nova Bomb there, which we know splits into lots of smaller Axiom Bolts and probably does some other stuff as well. And then we got the Axiom Bolt Nade, which we've seen in trailers. We've got the Energy Drain Melee, as you'd expect for the Void Walker, and the Rift class ability, which of course all Warlocks get. So this next clip is pretty interesting because you can see a bunch of ships flying into a planet, but it does look a lot like Mercury to me. It doesn't look like any of the planets we've seen so far in Destiny 2. It's definitely not Earth. It doesn't really look much like Nessus or Titan or Io. Now, just because it is Mercury, it doesn't exactly confirm that we'll get to go there for PvE content or even like a Lighthouse social space. I think what's really going on here is simply it's a Crucible map that takes place on Mercury, and that's why they're flying in here, but it definitely looks very similar to the planet. Also, all the ships have the Hunter snake on it, so it's very possible this is the clan logo that you can actually put on your ships and maybe customize some other stuff as well. Now, this updated map of Nessus was pretty interesting because it shows a bunch of icons. So you can see adventures and treasure maps, public events, also patrol modes, also a few lost sectors in there too, which I'm assuming is because they've already done them. There's lost sectors, of course, those dungeons, which don't normally show up on your map. You have to discover them in the actual patrol mode. And there's also this purple crown icon, which I'm not sure what it does, maybe a quest or a story mission. There's big circles with arrows, which look like fast travel spots so you can instantly get around with. And you can see the public event and how it displays the loot. So you can see the blue and purple engrams for the first time with their new icons. So there you go, pretty cool look at the Nessus map. So next up, let's move on to the Bungie latest blog post, which actually detailed a lot of info we didn't know about the beta and what to expect. So PvE content, we're going to be getting two things. The Homecoming mission, which is of course the first campaign mission at the tower, and also the Inverted Spire Strike. This is the one with the Vex and Cabal on it, on Nessus against the Vex Minotaur. And then with Crucible, we're getting two things as well. So Countdown, which is the attack and defend mode. This, of course, is on the map Midtown, which we've seen before. And for the first time, we're getting Control, which is going to be in a brand new map we've never seen before. Now, funny enough, everything we've seen so far in Destiny 2, we've only seen one Crucible map being Midtown. And if you didn't know, each map is actually made for a certain mode. So Midtown is made for Countdown, and this Control map we're getting is going to be made specifically for Control. So it's probably going to be a lot bigger and more open than Midtown, which of course is very narrow and has got a bunch of lanes for the Countdown game mode. Now, Bungie also said that for the beta, we're going to get 3 new subclasses, so the Sentinel, Dawnblade, and Arcstrider. But a while back in the E3 interview, they did say 6 subclasses, including the Gunslinger, Striker, and Voidwalker. So not sure if they changed their mind and now they're only doing 3, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. And now finally, there is the Farm social space, which strangely enough, we're going to get special access to for 1 hour on the Sunday the 23rd, the last day of the beta. So it's a limited time thing, exactly like the Moon mission in Destiny 1 beta, which is pretty cool. So they said that most of the vendors and activities aren't going to work, but you can still roam around, play football, kind of find secrets, and visit some of the basic vendors. So something pretty interesting about this beta is that character progression won't be how it normally is in the final game going forward. So you aren't going to have engrams dropping in the beta because you can't go to the Cryptarch, or maybe you have a rare chance of like 1 dropping and then you get that 1 hour of access to enjoy it and decrypt it. But Bungie said the loot will drop from enemies as rewards and also at the end of activities. So it's going to be very basic and not how the final game is going to work. So the new loot system and the reward system in the beta isn't going to be final. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with that. I think it means they're keeping more surprises for us. And when the full game comes out, it means the first experience will actually be progressing our character. So honestly, I prefer this a lot more. I'd rather this than them showing off too much and letting us play way too much of the game. This is more restricted than limited, so honestly, it's a good thing. And if you do the beta, then you're going to get this emblem, which actually looks pretty cool. And so in a couple of years, this is going to be that super rare emblem that a lot of people are going to ask how you get it. But there you go, that is the emblem from the Destiny 2 beta. Now, talking more about the idea of spoiling Destiny and Bungie showing off too much in these kind of previews, Luke Smith actually spoke about that in this IGN interview, which is definitely very interesting. So he talked about how much he loves, and one of his favorite things is when a game is new, everything is fresh, and you don't know anything about what to expect, and that he's focused on making sure that when we get the full game, that we're surprised and delighted. There's a bunch of stuff in the final game they don't want to talk about at all, because it represents surprises that we can enjoy for ourselves without Bungie telling us what to expect. So that is really, really good to hear. I think a lot of us often worry they might be showing off too much, and as a YouTuber, obviously it's my job to highlight this stuff and talk about it with you guys, but I assume most of you watching my videos don't really care about spoilers because you want to know all the info. But it's still nice to hear that even though we're seeing a lot of stuff in trailers and demos and interviews, they're still keeping a lot of secrets for launch, so that's definitely very good to hear. So that just about does it for this roundup of all the info we got from IGN and also the Bungie blog post. As always, let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comment section of everything I've mentioned. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating would be much appreciated, and I'll see you guys in the next one.